Switch to the speaker view and go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Digital Media Lecture Series 304R on the audio industry. And today brought in a guest who is local to our scene here in Utah County. His name is Eric Robertson. He has a few businesses that he does audio with. And so we'll let him, when we get into these interview questions, answer what exactly it is that he does. But if you look behind him in the background, you can probably determine.
I don't know. It's just the corner you can see, but
That's all right. I mean, you might be able to figure out pretty quickly that he has a natural,
addiction
to synthesizers. So I bet you guys can figure out what his primary instrument is that he uses, but it might not be the answer in what you guys think that he does for a living, because like I said, he has multiple businesses. So what he does might surprise you. But let's turn the time over to you just for a moment to tell us, Eric, welcome, first of all. And second of all, what on earth do you do for a living?
Oh, man. It's changed over the years. Would you like me to start from the beginning or currently what I'm doing now?
We'll get the backstory in a minute.
Currently. Okay. So, like today, I was working on stuff for the Utah Jazz, doing some sound design and remixing of stuff for their in-game videos. And that is a big portion of what I'm doing like this month and will be for the next month or so, because the season's starting, so it's crunch time. So their video teams are making like all the pump up videos and all the animation stuff. And so I'm working back and forth with them to do all the sound design and audio and composition. They just got a new like broadcasting deal, so they're not going through their AT&T Sportsnet, which is awful. So they're doing their own, and so it's cool. So I got to do a custom track for them for that broadcasting thing that will be playing every time the game comes on. They go to halftime or pregame and stuff.
So you are the official sound of Jazz Plus now,
I guess. Oh yeah, Jazz Plus. I haven't even realized that will be a thing. Yes, I'll probably grab that. So that's one thing I do. I'm also, I do a couple podcasts, and then I own a stock music library, which is something I've been building for the last, the actual library for like 6 or 7 years, but I've been composing for 20 years. So a lot of the music that I've been doing my whole life is in this stock music library. I also just do, I'll do film scores, documentary scores, a lot of commercial jingles, custom podcasts, intros and outros for people, and producing albums for artists.
Yeah, you cover a wide gambit of things, kind of bringing it all into the same wheelhouse, if you will, right? You're composing. That's one set of skills, but then you're also being the engineer producer and wearing multiple hats. Let's talk about the story of how you got to where you're at now. So the previous question, how did you get into where you're at? What's the story of how you came into being at a place where you can primarily work from home?
Yeah, I do all my work from home. Okay, well, it started when my mom forced me to take piano lessons as a child, and I hated it and fought it. And it's part of the culture here, right? So she said, you have to take piano until ninth grade, and then you can quit. And the second I got to ninth grade, I quit. But then I was getting into like grunge and metal. And so my parents wanted to keep me in music. And so they got me a guitar and drum set. And then me and my friends just played awful, like heavy music during high school, like Deftone wannabe type stuff, and had so much fun. They built a band room in our basement and just kind of like kept me going with music. And I'm so grateful that they accepted the awful stuff that I was making, because eventually, like my senior year in high school and then college, I got back into piano. I realized that piano was the map of music. It's the map of everything. I mean, visually, when you look at it and you can understand it, everything else comes easier. And then, so I got back into piano senior year. I went on a mission. And then when I came back, I grew up in Alpine, and I had a lot of like rich friends. And one of my buddies was a trust fund kid, and his mom put a studio in their house, and he was too lazy to do anything with it. So I went and figured out it was running Cubase at the time, and so he had a control room and then a studio room, and I would go set up the drums really bad. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just figured it out. I'd go push play, run in, put my headphones on, and just track. And I kind of just learned how to record kind of on my own. I just like tons of trial and error. It was just tons of hours of running back and forth, push and play, and then trying plugins. Just scrolling through all the different plugins and all the settings and just testing things out, which which was frustrating to learn because you feel like you're so slow. But looking back, man, those were great times. And putting in that effort of learning all the plugins and learning mic placement and preamps and stuff like that. And it was kind of not like a high end studio, but it gave me like the confidence to start recording my own albums. And then from there, I would do like I went to UVSC or it was UVSC back before. I don't know how old you guys are, but this is like 2003 to 5 or something. It might have been UVU at the end, but the music program was
2008 UVU.
yeah. So I wasn't even there for that. The music program was terrible, but what was cool is I started like becoming friends with filmmakers and the people that were in the ad programs. And so we did projects together. Like they would say, "Hey, can you compose this for me?" And I said, "Sure." Yeah. So the coolest thing about college for me was just the connections, and that's how I've done stuff for like Tesla, Nike, Reebok. I've done all these huge commercials because I've had friends in film programs go on to work at these agencies, and they'll still call me. But going back, I got a pretty good job. I got into like security, installing security like randomly one summer. You've probably all someone's tried to recruit you guys. And I was pretty desperate at the time. I had no money. So I'm like, okay, I'll go install. Sure. Well, I was actually really good at it and moved up the ranks really fast and became a regional manager. And so I got married and had this like golden handcuff job. Wasn't really doing music, kind of on the side, like BYU TV. Some people would hit me up for like a show score or like a theme or something every once in a while, but not really going strong at it. And then in 2012, I lost that job because the company went out of business. And my wife was like, all right, let's do music. So that was the catalyst of like kind of make or break it. And I was pretty determined that I was going to make it. And what I did is I just started going to Velour. Do you guys know what Velour is, the music place in Provo? I'd played there in college a ton in high school. Just started going there and seeing what bands were cool and started just like meeting people and then started like offering my services for free. I just like produce people for free. And then from there, I made some rad stuff that people liked and started getting paid for it. And then I basically just put all my feelers out. I'm doing music full time to all my buddies who are in ad agencies or filmmakers. And I kind of just decided there was no other option. And so from there, I just started composing a ton for people and doing a lot of stuff for free. And then once you get the reputation, then you can start valuing yourself. And then I started charging, and then it kind of snowballed from there where now I can work at home and have really rad clients. And I've done some, you know, film scores and documentary scores I'm super proud of. And I've made a bunch of albums. And and then from all the stuff that I had, I was doing a lot of composing for Warner Chappell. Like I do custom work for them. The problem was they own the master, and I didn't like that very much. And so a buddy of mine, Stu Maxfield, and me, we both were working for Warner, like part-time composing for them. We decided to start our own music library so we could keep the masters and the publishing and all that. And so we paid a coder and started just composing like crazy, and then curating our friends who had music. And then that today is called Pleasant Pictures Music Club, and we've got a bunch of subscribers and make content for it and curate. And it's really fun because when I don't have custom work, I'll go and just compose and make cool stuff to throw in the library, which turns into be income as well.
Right. So will you talk about that? Last week we had a guest. His name is Fred Archambault. He's at Warner Brothers Television. And
Mm-hmm.
so he was talking about going and getting things out of libraries, and he brought up stuff like 5 Alarm. How does it work? How do you like we don't talk about that a lot in this program. We talk about a lot of the practical side of the recording studio, but
Mm.
a lot of these guys are going to graduate and they might find themselves in a similar situation where they want to like continue to create music and content, but it doesn't necessarily fit and releasing it because they're not touring and stuff.
Hmm.
How do you, with your Pleasant Pictures Club, how do you do the licensing, handle all the legalities and all the fun stuff for when they get placed inside of TV or in film or whatever?
Yeah, so it's actually not a ton of legality on our part, because let's say you guys make a song and it gets picked up and a TV show wants to use it, like Netflix or something. As long as you're registered with a PRO, it's called a performance royalty. I don't even know what that means. Performance royalty something. It's like BMI. Have you guys heard of ASCAP or BMI? Okay, cool. So I'm with BMI. I register all my stuff through there. So what happens is someone can like subscribe to my site, which is fairly cheap, and they can be like, I'm going to use this in a film. Well, to get that to the network has to report legally to these PROs, and these PROs collect royalties. Okay. And so there's not a ton that I have to do aside from on my site, give them my composer name and my like BMI number. That's all I have to do. It's so simple. Because then the TV show has to, or the streamer, whoever has to report that, and then I collect royalties from it because I'm already registered with it. I know that seems really simple. It's a little more complicated than that, but it's pretty. They've made it pretty awesome for musicians to collect royalties as long as you've registered with a PRO. So if you guys are making music, even if it's not out yet, it is not a bad idea to just go start doing your catalog, because it sucks if you're like, oh, way down the line and they needed it yesterday, and you have to go figure this all out. I'll just go sign up now if you're
How much
creating any
does
type
it
of music.
cost to become a
It's
BMI artist?
free.
It is free. I'm a BMI artist as well. It's something that again we don't get a lot of discussion about in the program, but I think it's something that I have started pushing a couple of students who are like in their capstones, their senior year, telling them you need to start looking into this stuff. You need to have and take this seriously because there is a chance that you are missing out on opportunities and money that could come in simply by somebody saying, you know what, I really like that song. I want to put it in, and we call that sync, right? When they want to put
Yeah.
a sync on it. And so if you guys start now, go to BMI and just Google it, you can go sign up. And again, it costs $0 to do that. I think ASCAP has a like a startup fee.
Just go to BMI. Don't even like if you haven't done it yet, BMI is the best. Like that's kind of like what all of us know. I mean,
Yeah.
unless you find a different reason, BMI I would say is the best one.
And there's a few of them out there too. Other than BMI, there's ASCAP, there's CSAC, and there's some
CSAC.
other, yeah, there's like some other ones. But it, if you guys find yourselves in a situation where you want to do something like Eric, then you can have the back end. And the reason I asked that question is because I wanted you to explain that to these guys so they don't have to hear it from me. It's sometimes great to hear it from somebody else. Um,
Yeah.
you're like, oh yeah, that guy said that we could do this for free,
Hmm.
and I could do that. So I'm glad you brought that up. Stuart and you launch Pleasant Pictures. That's been a catalyst for you to continue to do your work because it provides a non-direct income stream, right? We call it passive income. How has having a passive income helped you to enable your further workings in the business? Pleasant Pictures.
I think, well, maybe I didn't. Oh, I got to do like, okay, I'm trying to chat to everyone.
That's
So
okay.
you'll figure that out. Okay. So you're asking like, what's the benefit of having this passive income?
Mm.
Oh, well, yeah, there you go. So, thanks, Travis. Guys, it's been kind of a game changer for me because music is such a sexy career that a lot of people want to do it. All right. And when there's a sexy career that a lot of people want to do it, the competition gets high. So being smart about your career and having something that is kind of consistent is so nice, because I don't know, consistency is awesome, but also not just relying on the consistency is awesome. I love not having a ceiling on how much I can do, you know? So I think it's great. Like if you guys have any music out there, it's not a bad idea to float it to libraries. There's exclusive libraries, and then there's non-exclusive libraries. Mine's a non-exclusive. Like people can put stuff in mine and put it in others. I don't really care. We're not. It's or sometimes if you go to an exclusive library and they really like your stuff, they will have better channels to feed it and they'll promote you. But that's also higher risk too, because if they're not floating your stuff and it's like, well, I'm just sitting in this exclusive library, I can't go anywhere else. So personally, I've had a pretty good experience with non-exclusive libraries, because if I compose a song, I can send it out to a bunch of different places, and then it's like a bunch of different reels in the water, and I'll get random quarterly checks from the same song from 4 different places, which is pretty cool. And I have music in both exclusive and non-exclusive libraries. So having this has been rad. Now, I'll be honest with you, this year I've been so busy with custom work, like clients, that I haven't put much in to the library. But what's still cool is people still subscribe because it's new to them. Um, I have one thing when I compose is like I'll send something to a client and they won't like it, or they need to revise or go a different direction. So I have all this stuff that when I get slow, I can go back and finish out that wasn't used by a client. And then that kind of stuff goes in the library. And I have a lot of that. Like I have probably like 40, 50 tracks that I need to go and like clean up and finish and then put into the library.
How do you prevent yourself from coming up against the proverbial stuck wall or
Mm.
the the writer's block when you're how do you relax enough to let creativity flow?
This has been a hard one, but the biggest game changer for me was realizing that I've got 4 hours of creative work in me a day. And so, man, once I hit my, like, when I do like sessions with artists, like I just finished an album with an artist called Dune Moss, and we had a great summer, but I would never go over 3 hours and 3 or 4 hours in a session. If I do more, it's just crap. And then I get burned out for the next day. So that's not that I'm not working more. Like I'll do admin stuff or, after I do the creative process. So I think once, if I keep it short enough and like punchy enough, I don't get burned out for the next day. That was like a real big thing. Cause I used to like go 8, 10 hours a day. And I'm like, okay, this is just a grind and not even fun anymore. So just realizing that most people only have 3 to 4 hours of like truly good creative juice in them. That's the way. I mean, traveling, walking at Provo Canyon, audiobooks, just stuff that fills my mind and stimulates me, keeps me creative.
Yeah, how do you described something that a lot of students are trying to figure out right now, and that's that work-life balance. How long into your career did it take you to figure that out?
Too long. Um, Man, hustle culture is really persuasive, and we kind of shame ourselves if we're not all day just grinding. It's really been hard to deprogram in a way. And that's what's cool is my output is just as good, if not better, now that I'm not just like going crazy with work all the time. Um, I don't know when it happened, but what's cool is I was really obsessed with schedules, and I found this guy wrote a book about the daily schedules of creatives, like composers, playwrights, authors, all types. And there was a common theme. It didn't matter when they worked. There was people that woke up at 2 in the morning. There's people that worked at 2 at night. You know what I'm saying? It didn't matter, but they all worked about 4 hours, and the rest of the day was filling their well. They were like going to the pub. They were in their garden. They were going for walks. A lot of this was like 17, 18, 19th century, so that wasn't the internet where you can just watch TV. But those were the things as they just go out, socialize, or be in their garden, or be alone and refilling their wells.
Yeah, no, I've, I mean, you and I were in a common group where we've learned a lot about the benefits of balancing out our lives. And I know that I have a lot of students that are trying to figure that out right now. And um, they burn both ends of the candle to the point where they are, number one, they're burned out, they're exhausted. And
Yeah, that sucks. I
like,
hate being there.
and when you're there, where's your creativity?
Yeah, it's terrible. It's just trash. You might as well not do it.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. So there's times where you guys, as you're navigating your career paths, that I want you to remember that if you
Hmm.
can find and set aside a specific time to do things, you're setting yourself up for better success in being able to find what you're looking for. I can sit down and play the guitar for 12 hours a day, but after the first little bit, it doesn't get any better. And that's what Eric's been describing as well. Um, your path getting to this point, you've had some pretty cool gigs and some fun clients. What are some of your favorite ones that you've had, and what are some that you can talk about?
Okay. A really fun one that I'm super proud of, and I actually produced a documentary. It's called The Insufferable Grew. I feel like you're can we just watch the trailer before I explain this? Is that possible?
Um,
Dude, pull up the trailer. The Insufferable Grew.
I haven't tried to share audio through this interface, but
I
doesn't
th-
mean
I
I'm not
think
gonna try.
I think if you can get it, I got to hang out and work with Jack Black.
Okay.
So while you're doing it, I'll just give some backing. So there's this filmmaker in Provo called Stephen Grew. Has anyone heard of him? You will now.
Not
Okay.
heard of it.
Dude, he is like, if did anyone see the Disaster Artist with like about Tommy Wiseau, that filmmaker who made that awful movie? Okay, so Stephen Grew lives in Provo, and he's made like 300 movies now, and they're all like low budget. Dialogue is so unbelievable, you just can't even believe it's real. So I've been obsessed with this guy forever, and I try to get on in his videos because he'd always call extras, but he was hesitant of me because I was a little too like aggressive trying to get in his films. Finally, he let me, and I got to go be in one of his like home movies. And then, oh, you found it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, yeah,
I hope the audio plays through because I haven't tried this yet. But if it doesn't, we'll come back to it later.
just yeah.
But
Okay, let's see.
we'll see what happens. Can you guys
No,
hear it at all? No.
nah, dang it. Well, I'll explain this then. So anyway, I got in this movie. Then my buddy, who was like a South by Southwest winner for a documentary he did, he's like, dude, we should do a documentary on this guy. And why he's interesting is he went to school with Jared Hess, who did Napoleon Dynamite,
Hmm.
and Jared Hess is a huge Stephen Grew fan. In fact, we found out that Jared Hess would, as wrap gifts at the end of his movies, would give Stephen Grew DVDs to like all these actors. So like Jermaine Clement, Sam Rockwell, Jack Black, they're all like fans of Stephen Grew. In fact, a lot of the Gentleman Broncos stuff is like kind of stolen from Stephen Grew. And so we did this documentary, and we said, Steven, what if we could get like an A-list actor in a new movie? And he's like, he's like, no way, it's not going to happen. Anyway, so we started documenting him, got him like a budget to make a film, and we documented him making this film called Unexpected Race. It's a romance between an elf and a woman. And we got Jack Black and John Heater to be in it. They agreed to it. So we went to LA and filmed Jack Black. He's the sheriff. And it was like the funnest year of producing this documentary. And then I did the film score. It's just this like weird, quirky. Stephen Grew loves the '80s, so it's a lot of synthesizer stuff, which is right up my alley. But that was so fun because I did so many things. I would do sound, like like boom miking, like capture on-site sound, and then was one of the producers, and then did the film score. But that was a very fun, satisfying project.
Nice. I'm trying to see if I can find a way to get this thing to play out the sound. I'm because I've got the SM7B running through a Focusrite, it doesn't want to play out the computer audio through the same thing. And sometimes there's a little button you can push, but I am not finding it to put
Mm,
that in there. So, but we can share the link.
sure, if you're interested, but what I love about it is the dude's honestly kind of an ass, and he's narcissistic, and he like his family lives in poverty, and he just makes these movies. He'll just go out and be so resourceful to like get these movies done, but like they're on food stamps and free rent from his wife's parents, and he ends up getting kicked out. And it's like all artists and creatives have that question: is like, am I delusional thinking I should go be an artist and I can't even pay for like basic life things for the people around me? And so it can kind of mess with your head, but it's a great question. And I would suggest, if you're actually asking that question, you're aware enough that you are not as crazy as this guy. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So, what are some of the things as you've gone through your career that have been hard knocks, like the school hard knocks that you wish that you could have avoided that maybe you could
Mm.
help our students to avoid?
This doesn't really relate to your students, but the website that I built, the Pleasant Pictures Music website, was so damn expensive. I wish I would have started with the end in mind of like all the things that I would eventually want and then do it right instead of just like a ladder adding one thing and one thing and then the site gets so clunky you have to race it. And then I mean, we probably spent easily over $100,000 on this site, and it's great. And it's still not there, but it works pretty well now. And I'll still have to put more into it.
So you're talking that's an investment thing.
That's an investment,
right?
Yeah, I wish I would have known that. As far as like music career, you know, I probably would have. I should have like found a mentor earlier, or, like really just not been so self-conscious and valued my drive and went and found a mentor who's done what I wanted to do. I think that would have saved me some unnecessary suffering. I don't know, man. It's such a weird career because it kind of just unfolds how it's supposed to, I think, and happens. I would have found a mentor.
Yeah, find a mentor. Chris, we'll get to your question in a minute here. I'm gonna run through a couple of other things with
Yeah.
Eric here first. But locally, people have probably heard your stuff and not realized it. All you gotta do is go to Lagoon.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Talk about that.
if you've ever ridden the Cannibal, I don't know if you've ever been there, but all that like tribal pan flute and those huge cinematic war drums. Yeah, I composed the music for the Cannibal ride. So my buddy Matt Easton, who does all the Imagine Dragon videos, and he's won the Grammy from it. He's one of my best friends, and so Lagoon hired him to be their ad guy. I don't know if he still does it, but for a lot of years he did. And through him, I did a lot of commercials for Lagoon. And then when that new ride came out, they needed a soundtrack for it. So they threw it my way. And I think it's still going. Like my daughter was there this summer and says it's still happening. What's funny is I haven't been to Lagoon since 2014 when that opened. Like previous, I have never ridden it.
Oh, you haven't even heard your own work.
No.
That happens sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's true.
Who are some of your creative influences that inspired you into your way of thinking and recording and laying out your music?
Man, I like a lot of, Radiohead changed my life. I love their music. I love their producer, Godrich. I love that type. I love like Boards of Canada. So I got into like analog synthesizers when I started doing music full time. Like they're pure magic to me. And I have mostly vintage. So I collect like this. You can't really see it, but this one right here is like made in the early 70s and it's like 1 out of 150. It's a rare Italian one. So a lot of my sound when I do my own stuff is like just vibey, crackly, like vintage electronic hip hop type moody stuff like that. That's like where I go when I want to do my kind of like synth wave, just kind of moody stuff like that when I'm left to my own devices. But I can do a lot of different types. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it's great information because it helps us kind of see where you're coming from these things. Let's take a shift really quick in your career. You do podcasts as well. Podcasts are becoming, more and more asked about on campus. People are always wanting to do a podcast, start a podcast, do something with a podcast. How much effort was it for you to be able to start putting out podcasts?
Okay, so my wife and I do it's been a really successful one called Awesome with Allison because my wife she's an author and she was big on Instagram when Instagram was the first thing. And so we had millions of downloads from that. And I had never done it before. We just kind of figured it out. And I would edit it all and just record it here in the studio. But now I know, and I do my own personal one now, which I'm really enjoying. But now I think it's pretty freaking easy to put out a podcast. I think Spotify just came out with a service where you can just upload it right to Spotify. And they might even like send it to other places as well. Like their RSS feed might send it everywhere. So this is the thing though. if you listen to podcasts, there's definitely a spectrum of quality versus like this guy recorded a voice memo and pushed submit, right? So, and what's cool is like I can listen to podcasts and it doesn't sound great, but the message is rad, so you forgive it. But man, it's so much easier to listen to a high produced, clean, the gain is nice, it's not popping, there's a de-esser on there, like all the nice stuff. It's just like it's just finessed. I really value that. So it does take a little more time to edit it. um there's a couple apps out there that are just genius for podcasting. Have you guys heard of Descript? If you haven't, what it is, someone should put that in the chat. descript.com. What it is you can upload an audio file and you can have 2 or 3 speakers on it, and it analyzes it and then it notates it and puts it into like a Word doc. And then you can listen. Yeah, there you go. You can listen and you can cut out stuff like this sentence sucks. And do you see what I'm saying? So you're editing like a Word doc. And then what's like amazing is I say like a lot and I say dude a lot. You can cut out filters, like, or cut out filler words. So you can like go down the list and be like, cut out all these. And dude, it'll cut out like sometimes up to like 500 filler words if you went for an hour, like on my own podcast. And so it cleans it right up, puts little fades in there. Sometimes it's not perfect, but when you listen, you can kind of see the audio at the bottom and stretch it and kind of do your thing to really finesse it. So I do that every time now. I record raw, throw it to Descript, and then I throw it into Pro Tools, and that's where I do my sweetening. I'll throw like nectar on it and put a de-esser and a compressor and do the levels, and then export it. So, I mean, it doesn't take that much to do a quality podcast. It really doesn't. Like, it's way easier than music. And then there's services that it's called an RSS feed. You can get it right up and get it distributed. So if you guys are passionate about something, it's almost dumb not to do a podcast if you want to get out there and be talking about stuff and networking and kind of get a name for yourself. In fact, I just got interviewed last night on someone else's podcast, which is weird because I've only ever done interviewing, but now I'm starting to get asked to be on podcasts. So it's kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah. So when you talk about that quality, I've listened to, and you haven't even dropped the name on it yet, but it's called Men Who Love God. I've listened to your podcast. And I like it's a good podcast. I
Appreciate it.
very, very hesitantly will go to any podcast that anybody ever recommends to me because of that exact the quality, right? I produced a nationally syndicated radio program for years, and those filler words, the long pauses between thoughts, you know, like, are you still there?
Yeah.
The bad compression, the no EQ. Like, we're gonna just release this, throw it up on YouTube so people can watch it. That's a different story. We're at least making the audio somewhat quality by using good microphones and stuff. But if you guys are gonna do a podcast, please use some of your skills.
Yeah.
Also, what he
Can I
said,
tell you? I'll
the
go for it.
fillers have to be gone. Listen to KSL News Radio. Sorry, I'm throwing them under the bus, but they're live DJs on their talk radio. Well, like, and then well, like, and then and then like, and then like, and well, and I'm like, oh my gosh, stop! Somebody please fix that guy. And that's just because I had to edit that stuff out before we'd ever let it go to air. But what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say, okay, so what I've learned with SM, I have a 57 here, and my guest has one on the couch. Is that what you have there, Brian? Too?
Yeah,
Yeah, you have the 57. Okay,
7B.
so 7B, yes. So I learned that I'm gonna pull it up.
The
It
cloud
was
lifter.
they were, yeah. I have to have these cloud lifters on it. I mean, it's like so stupid that they don't have natural gain, but this is essential because my first like 10 episodes, I'd never used a 7MB. I just record music, So I got these nice mics. I'm like, I'm having to push the gain so hard, and then get rid of like room noise. It was such a battle. So, guys, these are $100, and you have to have them with the 7B. And I think that's probably the best podcast setup in the world.
Yeah, there are preamps out there, and let me break this down. There are
Yeah, you know
preamps
better than
out
me.
there. Well, it's okay. There are preamps out there that will give you sufficient amounts of gain. We have some of those in our studio. You guys that are familiar with the Mog Audio stuff, they are sufficient to push. Plus, you can boost the top end to give it a little bit more. The Focusrite that I'm using right now Yes, Chris is talking about the new mic that's coming out. The
Mm.
Focusrite that I'm using right now, the Scarlet, or no, the red line, the red 8 line. Sorry, I got to get it right. It has sufficient gain, but you need more than 60 dB of gain to push your microphone into a place where it is going to be comfortable and listenable. And so if you are using something, and he brought up before we started the Vintech, if you're using an old Neve style preamp, sometimes they don't have the gain structure to push these mics to where they need with the human voice spoken. Vocally, they can do fantastic because this microphone can handle just about anything, and it will handle the largest SPL handling of any microphone out on the market. These things are fantastic. But yes, Shure is releasing, or has released, might be next week, the SM7DB, which has a higher gain
Mm.
profile on it because of this same problem. I always laugh when I see people using this as their podcast microphone if they don't know what they're doing, because people are like, "Oh, I need that, that one microphone that everybody has." And I'm like, I'm very well aware of it, but let me help you find some tools that are going to make this thing sound better. So I'm glad you brought up the Cloud Lifter, because yes, it did change the game in spoken voice. They use these in radio, and that's what the B stood for, was for broadcast. And those old radio boards did have sufficient gain. Plus, we weren't talking about the same level of gain structure that we need now for digital. Analog and digital, as my students are very well aware, have a very different peak, right? The levels are very different. We go to the digital world, which we're in now. You have 20 decibels more gain that you have to account for, and that's why it's important to have something like the Cloud Lifter if you're going to start a podcast.
Mhm. Yeah. In fact, you're totally right. When I first did my first, I don't know, first 10 episodes, I'm like, dude, this is the worst. So they don't sound as good as the later ones, but I'm excited for that new mic. Maybe I'll have my producer who funds the podcast. Maybe I'll have him get me those. Sounds
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, they're I haven't seen one yet, but I know about them. They're hopefully change that the game, so that we don't have to have so many tools in front of the microphone, and people can just go out and buy the microphone that they need. I'm a
Mhm.
fan of the Electro Voice RE20s, which is the radio style microphone. I actually personally own the RE27, which is the neodymium magnet in there, and it has a little bit more control. The neodymium magnet just has a bigger output so that you can avoid issues like this.
Mm.
RE20 is also going to have less gain structure, but that's a whole different story. And I can talk about that with my students and you, because we will all geek out on it. But if somebody else clicks in and watches this on
Yeah.
YouTube, they're going to be like, what are these
Uh,
guys talking about? Geek, right? But we're proud of that. Proud of
dude,
that fact, because
it's
we,
okay to be a geek, man.
yep. Where do you see yourself in like 5-10 years professionally?
That is such a good idea. All right, good idea. Good question. Um, Man, I don't know. Like, you and I are in this like men's group that is changing my life. And I don't know, my podcast is giving me ideas about doing stuff with that. But musically, I mean, I'll never stop doing music. It's dude, it's in my DNA, and that's like my I would hope that I'd be doing bigger, like I would love to be like composing for Netflix series, or I mean, except I don't really want to do like crappy stuff, like stuff that I don't agree with, but bigger stuff, bigger, impactful film scores. It'd be rad if my library had millions of subscribers. I need to put some more effort into there. I love composing my own personal albums. I have like 5 or 6 albums on um, iTunes or whatever.
What's your
So,
what's your artist name?
well, my artist name is Eric Michael Robertson. But if you really want to hear my sound of like stuff that we got placed on TV shows, my band is called New Shack, and we got placed a lot of different TV shows. It was pretty cool, actually. Um, so I did all the music, and there's a vocalist named Kat Levy, and she's in LA now and doing her own solo stuff. But we made some rad stuff for a while. But it's called New Shack, and I'm proud of that stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
have to drop that in the chat and then send me an email with a couple of your links on there. When I put this up on YouTube, I can put those all
Oh, cool.
on the bottom somewhere
Oh, right. Yeah.
underneath the video so people can track you down.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know, man. It's weird because I hope that stuff happens, but I'm not like just so determined to be there because I'm kind of just like new paths are opening. I'm just interested to see what happens. But I imagine I'll just still be working hard and following what is working.
How did you get, this is a totally personal, weird question, but how did you get it so that your wife didn't glitter bomb your whole entire studio?
Oh my gosh, she did though. I'm gonna
Oh,
turn this around. Look at this mural she painted for my birthday.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's my kids and dog. I
Yeah,
came home for my birthday and I actually hated that wall because there's like it was bland and I have like tons of cool like retro sci-fi art all around, but that wall is where your head sits behind the couch. So
right.
she painted it for me.
There you go.
But
Yeah, I was looking here. Looked very conservative compared to what I've seen going on
yeah,
with you guys' house and your wife's life. So I was like, man, you must have like banned her from the room or something.
it looks like it. Yeah, except for that wall.
All right. What advice would you give to students as they embark on their career? And after that question, I'm going to turn it over to my students, and we'll start with
Cool.
Chris. He had his hand up. But what could you give them to help send them off as they're transitioning out of the university life into professional
Mm.
careers?
Okay, well, I would say do not be prideful at all about opportunities, and I would say be super curious because so many things I've ended up loving doing I had no idea even existed. And just being curious and talking to people and being bold, walking into studios, introducing myself, messaging people that are doing, what I want to do. So I would just be curious, be bold. You really have nothing to lose. You have so much to gain by going out there and showing your face and showing a passion for your art. And or what are you guys like what's this class again? I don't remember. Are they recording?
Well, so this our
Who am I
class
talking to?
is called audio industry, but so these guys are in. Some of them are focused on like studio and recording for music. Some of them are focused on post production or production
Okay, cool.
television. Some are focused on video games and
Oh, rad. Okay.
audio. Some
Yeah,
of
you
them
guys,
are
you're all
focused on,
creatives. Yeah, either way, you might be more technical, but you guys are creatives. Okay, and that's fantastic. Okay, this is the thing. This is kind of the secret that has helped me in my career. I didn't wait to get hired for stuff. In fact, I only got hired for stuff after I went and made something rad. Like after I went and did a solo album or after I went and worked on a project. So that's what builds credibility. And that's actually where you shine because it's yours. Like go make something cool. Go record some amazing thing and mix it all crazy with how you'd want to like show people. Like go make something amazing and then and then people will hear it and then that's how you get hired to do more stuff. In fact, sitting around waiting for someone to hire you because you got a college degree is not going to get you anywhere. I promise you that. Like you just got to make cool stuff. And if you're not hired at the moment, you should just be making cool stuff. That's what I do. Is I just go finish the stuff I've started, just make cool stuff. That would be, in fact, that's what I'll tell my kids, just make cool stuff. Like
yeah.
this is our life. This is your life to express yourself, and you have time. I know you're busy college kids. I have 3 kids and a career, but I'm still making stuff. I'm still like, I'll call a buddy and be like, hey, let's work on an album together. And so I'm in my life, I'm always working on something that I want to do, that I love, and that's not just hired out because that kind of stuff is where people can see your passion and want to hire you.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that. Let's start off with student questions with Chris because he had his hand up a while ago. So Chris, you want to jump on?
Yeah, I had my hand up. I need to know the answer to this question, but first I just got to say, I'll be honest, I was like hesitant to join because they upload these to YouTube, and I was like, look, today I got to catch up on some classes. I got to focus on me today. And then I saw your name on the who was going to be presenting today, and I was like, that name is oddly familiar for some reason. And yeah, I was interning for a little while over at June Audio, and I have been touched hands with Nate and Mason and Stuart, and
Love those guys.
So
Yeah.
I'm not really in that circle, but definitely some Venn diagram of colleagues. But I just got to say that I think that I would love to get to know you, hang out, your vintage synth stuff. Anyways, like
Dude,
you and
yeah.
I wish there could be a one-on-one meeting today, because I'm like, everything you're saying, I'm like, I want to chat with this guy. But
Dude, get my number from Brian. Dude, you can come hang out for sure, man. This is the thing, man. This is the thing. Like, so many people have been so graceful to me and helping me. This is another tip I want to give you guys. People have been so gracious to me. Scott Wiley at June, Nate Piper, I love those guys. Sam Carden, like they're awesome. And so I really love like giving it back. And so I am completely open. If you guys have questions or want to come like learn how to use something, I'll find some time, and like I'm happy to pass on knowledge. So Brian, send him my number after this, okay?
Will do.
Thank you very much. Honestly, that's more than I could have ever asked for. But really, the question and the reason I raised my hand so early was you said go find a mentor, and it lit this like light in my mind. I was like, go find one. Don't wait for one to show up.
Yeah, go find it.
And like, but what would be your suggestion for a method on the how to do that? Because
what do you want to do? This is gonna be easy, dude.
Well, to be completely honest, pretty similar to what you're doing. The kind of make stock music / libraries is very, very interesting to me. Synth and moody and hip hop is very interesting to me.
Dude, then why don't then get my number, dude? You found one.
Like I wasn't gonna say, but like, yeah, I don't know how to say like, you seem like my perfect mentor. But
dude,
like,
do you know what I need though? I need someone to help like finish some tracks. Why don't you come like help finish all these tracks for the library? I'll show you how to upload it. Come be an intern.
Say less. Done.
Okay. All right, Brian, give my number. I just got You're in.
That's awesome. And I want you guys to know something.
That's super cool.
This is something that we've learned. So you guys know, I've talked about it in other classes. I hired a coach this year, right? I hired a coach who has, this is going to sound stupid, but the body style that I want. Okay.
Valid.
We all want that, Brian.
Oh, I know, but there are coaches out there who don't have that body style, and that I could go hire and they could help me get fit. The problem is I need to have full respect, and I need to be 100% convinced that the person that I'm hiring has the capability to take me to the level I want to get to. When you guys are looking for a mentor, this is for everybody. Go find somebody who has the career path that you want and tell them, I want you to help me get from this place to this place. What would it take for me to be able to learn from you to be able to get there? Now, in the world of fitness, that's paying for a coach. In the world of audio, that is interning at the right place. That is reaching out to the people who seem like they're behind all the gates and walls that you could ever imagine, right? That's one thing that I know set me apart from the peers that I had in the program. When I met Bob Ludwig, when I met Brian Gardner, when I met Bernie Grunman, when I met Chris Lord-Alge, when I met Tony Maserati, I asked them questions very specific to what I wanted to know. And I also researched what they did and said, I'm looking for something that is similar to how you did this on this album. What was your approach? That is something that people are willing to give you that knowledge on. But if you're just like, help me out, much less willing to help you out. Now, go for it.
I was going to say, you're right on. You're totally right. You got to make it. Okay. So most people are super busy. You got to make it easy for them. And so it's like an intern. It's like, how can I come help you? Because your goal is to learn and watch them do what they're doing. So it's not like, hey, can you mentor me? That's not a very like, I mean, there's going to be a lot of good people that will say yes, but that's not a very enticing prospect. It's like I'll help mentor you, but I need your help to like ease my burden too. And so we can both get something out of it. So make it easy for the mentor. It's like, can I bring you lunch? Can I bring you something? This is what I want to learn. Like, is there a good time that I can come help you do something?
Yeah. Yep. In the outside world of Utah and New York, it's if you run into the producer that you want to learn from, buy him a beer at the bar. right? That's what they say. That usually gets a lot of things done. In Utah, that's not going to get you very far, because I don't even know if there's a beer or a bar in Utah County that you can go to. But let's throw it to Travis first, and then we'll go to John, and then if any other questions pop up in the meantime, we'll get to them. So Travis, jump on.
Groovy. Hello. No, so I was also very excited when I saw your name, Eric, because I worked with Aaron Miller on the first season of the How to Help podcast.
Dude, that's
But
awesome. He's in my ward, dude. Love that guy.
Yeah, and well, I didn't know what I was doing, and he was having me use Descript and all this stuff, and I was like really overwhelmed and stuff. So I think he pulled you in to help finish that season. But I was just like, oh my gosh, like
that's crazy. Yeah,
we got this connection. But I've been using Pleasant Pictures music stuff like
rad.
Since then for a ton of my projects and stuff. We got me and my partner Mitch got third place for our Skills USA competition stuff, and we used some of your stuff in that. And
cool.
I mean, third place of 3 groups, but still third place, baby.
Hey, love it.
Yeah, I really want to get into podcasting too, and we've already kind of got that going on. But I was wondering, like, so I'm pretty, I can edit and do all that stuff pretty well, but what I want to know is, like, as far as like uploading and like the back end of the other stuff, like, do you have like any advice on that end of things, or difficulties that you've run into like in the process of figuring it out yourself? This
is going to be solved for you, man. There are multiple platforms that will do this for you. My first podcast was on SoundCloud. I paid for a pro subscription and that did it. I probably wouldn't go back there again. My second podcast, I don't know who it's through. I have a producer that's doing all that stuff, but I have looked into like podcast uploading, RSS feed distribution, and there's probably 20, and they're probably all going to do about the same thing. Okay. That's what's great about capitalism. They're all going to give you about the same price and the same thing. So you're not going to go wrong. And what's great is you're going to upload your images. I'd recommend be very good with your images, your descriptions, get a copywriter if you suck at writing stuff, make it all clean and beautiful. And then what's cool is once you upload it, it's just a very easy process. You upload the description, title, audio file, and it's just going to send it out to everywhere. So the initial setup will take you a little bit, but after that, it's going to be very, very simple. And I wish, like I said, don't do SoundCloud. They're decent, but I think that's not their bread and butter. I would go specifically to a podcast distribution service. If it was me doing it again.
Travis, when you get a minute, if you don't know Mike Harper, he teaches a whole entire class on this. So you could ask him that question. They do have a software service here at the school that students have access to that is specifically for that. I can't think of the name right now because, of course, I'm going to have a brain fart when we're talking about it, but I can also point you into the direction and how you can get signed up on that to start something. It doesn't mean when you graduate, you get to continue on with that, but it does help you kind of learn all that back end aggregation of what happens.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Groovy. I didn't even know that class existed.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Harper teaches a whole podcasting class. It's specifically designed for that. So
what have I been doing?
Now you know. If you don't ask the questions, you don't know, right?
Well, now I know. Groovy, thank you.
Questions are fantastic. John, go ahead.
All right, thanks, Brian, and thank you, Eric. So I am also interested in music library work and music composition work. My question for you is, how are you convincing people to stick with you over more prevalent services like Soundstripe or 5Alarm? Like, why are they buying your $30 track over the $10 to $20 a month subscription elsewhere?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're non-exclusive, and so I'm not. My goal isn't to. And this is the problem, man, with doing too many things. Okay, so like if I was just doing my library, I'd be super aggressive with advertising, uploading, keeping the site up. It's kind of like my, I hate to say it, kind of a back burner thing that exists. So as far as getting artists to join, there's a lot of artists that want to be part of non-exclusive libraries, because I've had a lot of success with it, with throwing my music into a lot of different places. It doesn't hurt for someone to just throw theirs in mine as well. If someone is really wanting to be aggressive and get out there, I would never recommend us. Ours is kind of like what we call it mailbox money. If it's sitting somewhere, why don't you just put it into somewhere that is going to potentially generate something, as opposed to not generating anything. And so I'm not promising like artists are going to make a career going through my library at all. Not at this point. I mean, it could someday, and that would be rad if I, mustered enough hours behind it to do that. So to answer your question, I'm not really promising that. I'm not saying it's a great idea, but if someone has multiple non-exclusive libraries out there, then why not throw it in ours too?
Yeah, that makes sense. And a quick follow-up question. How are you securing these clients for custom music jobs like Lagoon or the Jazz? Like, I don't think most of us know where to even start with big name clients like that.
So if you're a composer, guys, just be vulnerable. Go to the film program of UVU and go like put a card with a QR code. Go meet the filmmakers, go to the ad agency and be like, guys, like I'll do custom music for you. This is literally how I have probably like 70% of my business is I was friends with the artists at BYU and UVU. Like I just kind of ran in that circle. Like I was just friends with those people. And so what you need them to think of, what's your name again?
My name is John.
They need to think of John as like, oh yeah, John does music. We have this project coming up. We can use this. Like, let's work with John. And it's like no sweat off anyone's back. It's not like it's going to be seen by anyone. So start working with people and just be bold and start getting your stuff out there and make it known that John does music. Because right now, maybe no one knows.
Just do music, Eric. John is one of the most talented jazz pianists you'll ever meet.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, John, there you go. They need to know that. So if John, the jazz piano guy, like you need to be the one on their mind, because then they're going to call you first. And that's how business works. They're not going to Google who's the best jazz pianist in Utah County. That will never happen. They're going to think, oh, who knows a jazz piano guy? Oh, John's the guy. So you need to go, and no one's going to start that. You have to go be aggressive with that. All of you guys do.
That's your new Instagram handle, John Piano Guy. John. Jazz piano guy.
You have to arm wrestle John Schmidt, the piano guy, who also is a buddy of mine.
Yeah. Oh man, he's great.
Yeah, well, he's awesome.
Eric, thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope that's helpful, man.
Yeah.
It's been awesome. Do we have any other questions out there for the group? This is it's always fun to see where your guys' brain go with these conversations. I always get I'm always excited when I leave this class, because I'm like, oh, there was some great little nugget of knowledge that was dropped, and you guys usually put that up in the write-up that we do afterwards. But Zach, you got a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to just join in thanking everyone else for coming, Eric, today. My question is about like legal things, about like essentially what is running your own business, dealing with licensing, dealing with like just the laws in general surrounding ownership and distribution. How do you like manage that? Do you have to learn what all of those licensing and laws are going to be? Do you hire a lawyer? What does that look like for you?
That's a good question. So we do have a lawyer, and like if I need it, it's not like I have a lawyer that I'm paying regularly, but if I need something, she's awesome. The main issue for us was finding an agreement between my library and the end user, right? That was like, and what I did, man, is I found another library that had it, and then I took it and I had her look over. I had found another license of someone who's doing something very similar to us, and I had her look over it and customize it to like anything we wanted to change. And it was as simple as that. So I'm not going to be very helpful at all, because I don't remember the stipulations. I don't remember what we said in it, but at the time when we set it up, it sounded good and it was pretty like industry standard. That's the thing, is you don't need to rewrite. You don't need to reinvent anything. You need to find someone else that's doing the same thing. And there might be even like a template agreements out there that you can just fill in the names of something. You can probably find something like that. Is there something specific you're looking for legally, or does that answer
No,
your
I was
question?
just, that actually answers my question perfectly. I was just curious about that because it's not something that's often talked about, I think. And
Yeah.
so actually that is sort of a perfect answer, just recognizing that like, hey, it is a hurdle you got to jump over, but it's not going to be as hard as it
Oh yeah,
sounds.
it wasn't very hard. In fact, who I can't remember the podcaster guy who uses PPMC, but you when you download, you can download the different songs, and then you can download the licensed PDF if you need it. Like it's an option to download. And so if someone needs that, they can download it and then prove to YouTube or whoever that they have a right to that song and it has the terms in it.
Yep.
So most people I don't think need to download it because they're just making social media stuff or local ads or something. I don't know what they're using it for, but rarely will you need to show it. But sometimes YouTube, even though it's like the music's not copyrighted on YouTube, sometimes YouTube randomly flags stuff. Those algorithms aren't perfect, and so you can appeal it and just send in the license, and it always gets taken care of.
Yep. And
Awesome. Thank you.
You can take some of that also. I'm going to plug another class that's in our program, Corporate Issues with Arlen, right? You can take that. He is an attorney, so he does know the laws and stuff behind that. Always good to have that knowledge, but
He's going to be, go to him. Don't go to me.
Also, it's like what I've said in other classes. If you can avoid paying the attorney all the money,
mm-hmm.
and save yourself money, then find that way first. And so taking an agreement and saying, modify this to my needs, instead of saying, write me a contract, she's going to say, okay, that's going to take me 24 hours at $300 an hour. All of a sudden you're like, oh, there's no way I can do that. Modify this contract to suit my needs. She's looking at it for an hour and a half and then and changing it for another 30 minutes. You've got 2 hours. You can afford the $600. You might just not be going on the trip that you hoped for, but at least you're not buying her a new car, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, there's so many things. I don't think you guys are going to be doing anything new out there. There's going to be agreements that already exist that you can modify.
Yeah. John, you got another question? Go for it.
Yeah. So a quick question here. What is your favorite way to bring virtual instruments and other like simple sources to life?
You mean in my production?
Yeah.
I'm really liking these. Do you guys know what Teletone is? It's this company out of Nashville. They're making these rad VSTs. They're all like 70, $80. And I haven't found one that I would not buy. I mean, they're just like knocking you out of the park. I would, if you're doing music production, I would look into these guys. I mean, they're kind of vintagey, just super sexy. I'm using that a lot. Well, that doesn't answer your question, but I am using a lot of those right now because but I have a lot of vintage gear. I don't know if you can see, but I have like old choruses and tape echoes, and I have pitch shifters and choruses and delays and all this kind of stuff. That kind of, when I do my production on albums, that kind of sets me apart, is those sounds that are hard to mimic. I really like outboard gear. But that doesn't answer your question with VSTs. A really cool VST is a Sketch cassette. Do you guys ever use that one? It's like $30. It is the coolest plugin, and it will dirty up or make something sound vintage like in 2 seconds. And it's like, yeah, Sketch cassette. That's a really fun one. I'm trying to think what else I go to. Pro Filter 3, Q3. I use that all the time. Wave plugins. Gosh, I know this isn't gonna inspire anyone. I'm just trying to think of stuff that I use. Nectar on vocals. I think that's a great plugin. Nectar 3. I go there quite often. Yeah, people use a lot of plugins for stuff. My stuff really got good when I truly understood EQ and compression. I know it sounds like the simple answer, but when you really dive into those things, you can just make your mixes come alive and sound just really bold or dull or however you want to sound. Those two tools really are cool. The compressor I love is the Wolfpack guy. I think it's like the GHZ. I can't remember what it's called, but it's something like that. It's a fantastic compressor, really punchy and cool. I'd snag that one if you guys just want to like a very dynamic compressor. Hope that helps.
And anything you can do, John, to add texture to that stuff. Remember all the synths that you heard that had a lot of cool vibe and stuff from the 80s, 70s and stuff. They recorded that in a room still. So it wasn't just direct plugged in. And so what kind of vibe did the speaker cabinet create off of that? What kind of vibe did maybe they had to have a special amp going out to that speaker cabinet? What was that doing, and how much harmonic distortion is being created off of that? So those are some ways you can add some extra texture. If you use the straight, virtual instruments, you get a very flat, very unflattering just wall that comes up. And if you want to create that, then there are ways to do that. Like Eric said, throw in your favorite guitar pedals and do some reamp.
Yeah, I run stuff. Here's my pedal board that I love. I don't know if you can see that, but that's I run stuff through that. Yeah, outboard gear is fun, man. Twisting knobs and having it go through capacitors and copper wires. I mean, that's like, it's so much more fun. When I do commercial work and I don't have time, I definitely am using VSTs for everything and digital plugins. But when I'm doing my thing, man, it's all about the outboard gear.
Yep, I love it. You guys know that I'm a fan of outboard gear too. So there's just a fun vibe about having all the stuff in front of you, and you can just tweak it right there.
Yeah, it's fun.
Clicking the mouse, right? All right. Well, do we have any other questions? If we don't, we'll say thanks to Eric. Hopefully, he offered to come into the studio, and I said, let's record it this way this time, but I definitely will have you come down and check out the studio space sometime. You can meet all the students face to face. But with that, no other questions being there. Thanks for your time, Eric. Thanks for those who are going to watch us and join us in live in class, and those who are going to watch it later. It's always a pleasure to have you guys with us. And as we learn and explore the untold stories of how people got their jobs in the audio industry and expand people's minds on the possibilities and horizons that exist out there. So thank you, everybody.
Cool.
And we will talk to you guys next time.
Thank you.